I've got a new camera. It's a kind of vlogging setup thing. I wouldn't have gone for that, but got it second hand in mint condition with the handle tripod combination dealy, cheaper than just the camera new, so I'm giving it a try. This may turn into a bit of a vlog, to be honest. It's been a busy weekend in the workshop, but I haven't really done a project that I wanted to do a video on. I've done some bits and pieces and I wanted to test this out, so I've filmed some stuff. Hopefully you'll find some of it interesting. So what have I been up to? I made some little storage trays for drill bits to go under the pillar drill in the unit there, so that's got myself a little bit more organised. I've made some memorial markers. I want to call them headstones, but they're not made of stone, so like grave markers for cats. There's one for a cat called Marmalade who actually died in 2000, but that's why the marker needs replacing. And then my wife and I had a cat called Charlie, sadly passed away in 2024. And we hadn't put any marker where she was buried, we'd just planted some lupins. So redoing the one, I decided, well, I'll do one for her as well. So I've done that. I've had a go at hand-cut dovetails. Now, I've filmed some footage of it, and I'll put that in, but there's no point in me making a video about dovetails because there's 1,000,001 dovetail videos on YouTube. I'm a novice at them, and you know, if you want to learn how to do them properly, I'd suggest looking at, say, Matt Esley or Paul Sellers or Rob Cosman or Jonathan Katz-Moses. Not affiliated with any of those people, but they've all got some good content on dovetails. For me, it's a first attempt at doing them by hand. I've used a dovetail router cutter in the past, but never done hand cut ones, bizarrely enough, so I thought I'd give it a go. It's okay. The joint is functional, it's strong, it's not as neat as I'd like it to be. Now here's my dovetail box that I've made. Not too bad, like I say, it's a little gap in places. The lid I haven't finished yet because I need to get some hinges. But yeah, quite pleased with it for a first attempt, I guess. Not too bad. So that was a first for me. The other thing I've been doing is kind of new. I mean, it's not technically a first. I have had a go before, but not for a long time and never really persisted with it. I've been trying some turning. This could be a good test of how well this new camera deals with a bit of dynamic range, so hopefully this will be relatively clear. But yeah, I've now got Dad's lathe and I've got it set up. I wasn't going to set it up initially because I didn't have somewhere really sensible to put it, and I thought, well, I'll just store it until I've sorted something out, but actually it was at least as awkward to store it disassembled and everything as it was to set it up. So I've brought it down to the outbuilding and there we have it. So it's a Myford Maestro, good old British make. I think they started making these, well, this particular model I don't know. I mean, Myford have been around since at least the 1950s. This is not quite that vintage, but it's a fair few years old. Had to disassemble it and the base that it's on and everything to transport it, and then because the base is all homemade and I didn't want to forget how it went back together, I said, well, we'll put it back together and then I may as well put the lathe on it, and then since it's there I may as well have a go. So I've been having a little play with it. We've got lots of good accessories and things with it, so there's loads of different chuck jaws, and there's a selection of goodies in here, lots of tools, more than I know what to do with in some ways, if I'm honest, because I know how to do the basics, but I don't know some of it. The best analogy I can come up with is I feel like an Anglo-Saxon after the Roman Empire has left. You know, that Dad's made tools for specific purposes and jigs and all sorts of things. So obviously we're solving a particular problem. I don't know what that problem is. I know how to use the basic gouge, skew, spindle gouge, scrapers. Some of the things that I've found with the lathe are just outlandish and I don't even know what they're for. So I'm kind of baffled by some of it. but I've been having fun doing a little bit with it. I've only done basic stuff, so I'll give you a look at the things that I've done thus far, but yeah, there's a long way to go to get to a long way from where Dad was, if that makes sense. Now this setup's less than ideal, obviously. We haven't actually got a permanent power supply down here even, so I'm just running everything on an extension lead. Yes. I've got 445 litre storage boxes with tools and bits and pieces in, and accessories for the lathe, and as I say, some of them I don't even know what they do. So it's a question of, can I relearn how to turn? Now, Dad did give me some turning lessons a long time ago, and I do recall some of that stuff, but due to my, at the time, relative youth and foolishness, I probably didn't pay as much attention as I should have done. You know how it is, I didn't realise the value of what I was getting there. I don't think it's too far off the mark to say that Dad used to be a world-class turner. Certainly, considering it was just a hobby, he was at least a semi-professional level, and he did undertake commissions for people and make things for a local furniture restorer and sell things and exhibit things, and he won the competition, the annual competition at the club he used to be a member of, a record number of times. I would be surprised if anyone ever gets their name on the trophy as many times as he does. And yeah, some of the things he's made are really remarkable. And now I've had another little go on the lathe, I really appreciate how good they were. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of subtlety and a careful, gentle touch to do some of the stuff he's done. One of my favourite pieces that he's made is a yew teacup and saucer. If I can find a picture of it, I'll put it in. It's turned in yew with a boxwood teaspoon, and the teacup and saucer are like fine bone china. They're honestly, if you hold it up to a strong enough light, you'll see through it, you know. But beautifully finished, that just smooth and perfect kind of thing. He turned some darning needles in box, like sort of, you know, turned needle-sized things on a lathe, tiny little flowers, just big, deep, hollow vessels. He's done all sorts. And actually, having just made a few cuts, the skill that was there is incredible. Now, sadly, at the moment, you can take him something he's turned and say, "Hi, Dad, you should hang on to this. Look, it's really good." And he'll go, "Oh, that's nice. Oh, yeah, lovely," because he still likes it because he made it to his own taste. But if you say to him, "Do you remember making that?" he's no conception that he made it. So this was my first attempt at doing something, and it was literally just to practice. I've just turned a load of shapes. I've tried to turn some coves and beads and things. That one, I don't know if you can see, but that is quite nice actually. That's not sanded or polished, that's just the finish from the tool, using a skew and rubbing the bevel, and it's lovely and smooth. And then some of them you can see where I've had catches and they've gone a bit wrong. So that was the first thing I did, just some practice cuts. Oh, Onyx has come down to help out. Oh, now she's going to go behind something. Onyx, come say hello. Ah, kitten. So that was the first attempt at just making some cuts and learning how to use the tools. And then the only things I've done since then are just, I've turned some little toadstools. So I've done 3 of those so far, slightly different shapes. They come out okay. I've just been using some softwood, some pine. I haven't got a bit of it left here to show you, but just like a sort of 2x2 pine piece that it's cheap to mess around with and waste if I mess it up, frankly. And what I've got on the lathe at the moment is this, which is something Dad had obviously started making and then abandoned. I don't know what it was going to be. It's no good asking him, he won't know. It's got a bit of a knot hole there, which might be the reason he didn't use this. He's plugged a hole there by the looks with a contrasting wood. There's another knot there. I don't know what he was intending to do with it and whether it was just a bit of experimentation, but there's a spigot on the end, which is what I'm gripping it by in the chuck, but he'd obviously parted something else off, so maybe he'd made something else and this was the waste in the end. But you can see it was held between centres previously. So yeah, I don't know what that was intended to be, or if it was really intended to be anything other than it was a waste piece that he made something else off the end of. But I'm hoping that I can use that to make a little bowl. That's the idea. So I'm going to try and neaten this up. Maybe I can turn down far enough to get rid of this knot hole, which will obviously reduce the diameter a little bit, and then put a foot on here of some form so that I can then finish the outside, flip it round, hold that in the lathe, it in the chuck, and turn the inside of the bowl. Now, that all sounds great in theory. It sounds like I know what I'm doing, but that would be a first attempt. Thus far, I've only been doing spindle turning, so we'll see whether that plan survives contact with the enemy. So that's reduced it a bit, but this knot hole's still looking quite nasty, and I don't know how deep that plug goes, and then there's this knot here. So the question is, do I try and reduce that down to get rid of all that stuff and keep as much of this length as I can, or do I just continue cleaning this up a little bit, clean that face up, make that the bottom of my bowl, and then get rid of all that and just have a bowl that's kind of that size? I mean, actually that's probably a bit too deep for the size of the vessel anyway, if anything, so maybe I'll do that. Just don't know. This is where experience would come in if I had any. So that's sort of cleaned up the bottom, depending on how you define cleaned up. I mean, the hole is gone. There's more tool marks in it than when Dad had left it just roughed out and I was trying to cut it smooth, but it's flatter, it's squarer to the rest of the thing, and that hole in the middle is basically gone. So I think that's alright for now, and I need to probably start shaping this here, try to make that a nicer curve before I attempt to put some sort of foot on it that would allow me to hold it the other way around to do the inside, I think. Well, apologies if you're getting a little rain noise, I don't know how bad that's going to be, but it has started to. It's going alright, but it's looking a bit like a plant pot at the moment. If you see what I mean. So I think I probably need to sharpen that angle in there. I don't want to make the base of it too small because I need to fit a foot on there like I'm holding the chuck. And I guess this is what comes of not having a really firm idea of what I'm doing, but we'll see. Right, so I put the tool rest at more of an angle and I've brought that in a bit, and it's a shape I'm a little bit happier with. It still looks a little bit like a plant pot. Maybe you need to do a little more. there's a woodworm hole here, and I've been chasing it. I don't know how deep it goes. And the only thing I can think is maybe I can get a scribe or something from the workshop and just poke in there and try to see how far that loose stuff goes. I don't want to turn away too much in trying to get rid of that, but I'd rather it wasn't there. Yeah, I think I'll have to probe it with something and try and figure out how deep it goes. Maybe that's why Dad put that in there. I'm guessing it was a knot. Just recalled that there was a load of panel pins on the shelves behind me, so that is a couple of mil deep, I think. I'm going to take 2 mil off the whole diameter there. I'm going to have to take more off of here to try and retain that curve, and I'm not sure I really want to make it that small, but I'll try and do a little more. This lying is terrible. So that's the sort of thing where turning's frustrating at the moment, because I had that catch and it's put a nasty tool mark on there, which I don't think I'm going to be able to get rid of that too easily, but it is on the bottom where hopefully people won't really see it too much. So I'm not going to attempt to turn that out, because I think I'll just end up chasing my tail basically until I've run out of wood. I've tried to create a foot there with a kind of subtle dovetail shape to it using the skew so that the jaws of the chuck will hold in it well, but I'm not 100% confident whether I've done that well enough or not, deep enough or angled enough, skewed enough, so I don't know. Hopefully, it seems like you'd need less purchase than you might imagine to keep something on the lathe, but it's a little bit concerning when something's doing a few hundred RPM that you want it to be held on there nicely. I think that bottom is about as good as I'm going to get it, so I'm going to try and sand out some of these tool marks and finish up the outside, and then flip it round and try and do the inside. Whether I'll get to that today or not, I don't know. I've sanded it, I've gone through a bunch of different grits, and I've put a finish on it. Now, I've not been too fussy, to be honest, because, I mean, it's got wormholes in. One thing I did do, actually, before I did that, was put some woodworm killer on it, just in case, but and then I've sanded it down further and then put the finish on. Like I said, I'm not being too fussy. I mean, really, there's a bit of a tool mark there that I should have gotten out if I were really trying to make this pristine, but it's a rough piece of wood. The idea is just to learn, it's just practice. But I mean, where it is not too flawed, it's a lovely looking piece of timber actually. Now, what I know about finishing turnings wouldn't fill the back of too many postage stamps. I've just tried a couple of things so far, mostly oils. This time I've used this stuff, Wood Wax 22. I don't know what happened to the first 21 formulae, but that one seems quite good. The only thing I do know, useful little safety tip for any fellow beginners like me, it's fine to use a cloth like the one that's Dad's left in the tin there. When the lathe is static, when you're just polishing something static, but when it's turning you want to use paper, something that will tear if it gets caught. So when it's spinning around, if that catches on something, it won't draw your hand into somewhere and get hurt, it will just rip the paper. So yeah, I've done that. So next step will be to take that off the chuck, turn it around and see if I can mount it on some different jaws using the little recess that I turned in the bottom. Now I'm hoping that that will be enough and good enough. That's my only concern really in this whole operation. I think that's the sketchiest bit, is holding it on the lathe by the bit I've turned. But yeah, should be all good in theory. I've turned it around and mounted it the other way with the different chuck jaws, but it did seem to be a little bit wobbly. Now I've double checked everything here and it all seems to be straight and tight and as good as I'm going to get it, but I wasn't too happy about it, so I decided to use the tailstock to give it a bit of extra support. That is going to be in the way, but I can still access this. I've started turning away this little spigot that I was holding it in the chuck previously, so I'm hoping that if I reduce a load of mass off of this with the tailstock in place, then you know, by the time I've got rid of some of this, it will be running a little smoother. That's the theory anyway. Well, that's a failure. I thought my tactic had worked then. I'd taken a load of mass off of the thing and it was running a bit more smoothly. Took the tailstock away and turned the speed right down just to be on the safe side, and then started trying to turn the face of the thing, and it's dismounted itself from the lathe with a little bit of damage having been incurred. So I don't think there's a sensible way of recovering that. Obviously my bottom piece that recess I've turned there isn't good enough. It can't hold onto the chuck drawers. They just can't grip it well enough. It needs to be deeper or a better angle on it. I don't know. I mean, any turner who sees this and can explain what I did wrong there, please let me know in the comments, because I don't know. I think next attempt I'm going to try and turn a bowl with a foot on it that the jaws can grip the outside of in the more, what I think was a more conventional way. This is a legitimate method, or this is, you know, should be a legitimate method using a recess like that, but it hasn't worked. But you know, I like to keep these videos honest. You know, I'm going to show you my failure there. I didn't catch it coming off the lathe on camera, unfortunately, otherwise I'd show you that. But yeah, that's dead. I think that's firewood. Well, I'm not going to pretend I'm not a little bit gutted about that, and my instinctive reaction is I feel like I've wasted a couple of hours there. I've now got a highly polished piece of firewood. Maybe I could drill a hole in that side, mount it on a screw chuck, turn that recess better somehow, then reverse it and make it into a little bowl. That is all a bit advanced. I know the theory, you know, I can tell you that and sound like I know what I'm doing, but I'm not going to attempt it. I think that is fire food, and I will try again a simpler method. But I've learned something there, and I've got to try my new camera out, and I've got some cool slow motion footage and it looks really awesome, so that's good. Just to show you that I have completed some projects successfully, here are the little toadstools that I turned just in some pine as kind of first attempts at turning something that wasn't just practice cuts and cutting a shape. Actually, these are a good little beginner project for turning or for carving, really, I think, because the shape and the proportion and everything of these isn't critical. These are three deliberately different ones. You can just claim that they're three different species. Obviously, they're pretty simple, and you know, I'm not going to claim that they're marvellous, but they were something I made on the lathe and they worked, so I've got that. Now, my wife thought they were very funny, but said she wouldn't comment on why. Is what it is. Here are my cat memorial signs. Just those are in need of some exterior varnish which I need to get from somewhere. I put some preservative on them, but I'm going to varnish over the top of that, and then they can go in place. So, oh, and I mentioned drawers under the pillar drill. Nothing fancy, but that's got myself a little bit more organised. So it's been a successful time in the workshop in a way. Yeah, a bit gutted about that, but like I say, you live and learn. Thanks for your company in the workshop and in the outbuilding today, and I'll see you again soon.